Hello, everyone. My name is Miss Pepper. I am the head of English curriculum here at Great Solution Learning Center, and I also teach a couple of secondary English classes myself. Right. So over the years, I have worked with hundreds of students on their writing. And one of the most common problems that almost everybody encounters is writing the argumentative essay. So I have put together a two-part video lesson series to help you tackle this. Yeah? So stick with me till the end, all right? Right, let's get started. Why this lesson? Well, the argumentative essay is one of the most challenging essay types when it comes to the O levels. And the part that most students struggle with is the counter argument and rebuttal. So many students, they either rush through the counter argument or they write it in a way that makes it sound like they have suddenly switched sides. And when it comes to writing the rebuttal, many students, they simply recycle their earlier points instead of actually responding to the counter argument on its own terms. So this is why we are spending two full lessons on this. Today, we focus on the counter argument. The rebuttal will be in the next video. Now, what is a counterargument? Now, let's just make sure we're on the same page. In an argumentative essay, your job is to take a position on an issue and convince your reader that your position is the right one. Yeah? So you can agree to a large extent, you can agree to a limited extent, you may disagree even, but whatever your stand is, not everybody is going to agree with you, clearly. And that's what the counter-argument is. The counter-argument is a point that goes against your stand. It is what somebody who disagrees with you might say. Yeah? Now, what is the structure of an argumentative essay? This is what I recommend my students. Yeah? So, start with the intro. Body paragraph 1 is your supporting argument number 1. Then, your supporting argument number 2. Next comes the counter-argument and rebuttal. Lastly, the conclusion. So, the body paragraph 3, the counter-argument and rebuttal paragraph is what we'll be focusing on. Now, choosing the right counter-argument is the first step. Not all counter-arguments are equal. If you pick the wrong one, you may either look very lazy or you may back yourself into a corner and you really don't want to do this. Okay, so some students make the error of choosing a straw man argument. A straw man argument is a point that is so flimsy that no reasonable person would actually hold this opinion. If you pick a straw man argument, it tells the reader that you cannot handle real objections. So you don't want to do this. Next, you also don't want to pick a counter argument that is too strong. Just as you don't want to, rebut a straw man, you don't want to go up against a brick wall. Right? So you don't want to choose a point that is so convincing that you struggle to respond to it. If you can't rebut it effectively, it will weaken your entire essay. So what you need is a suitable argument, a point that the reader will genuinely consider is valid, is legit, but it is still one that you can respond to with a strong rebuttal. Let's take a look at some examples, shall we? Now, for the purposes of this lesson, let's use this topic as a sample. Community service should be compulsory for students. Do you agree? Take a minute, think about this. Personally, I would go with agree to a large extent. Honestly, it's just easier, right? Okay, now, somebody who disagrees with you would then say that community service should not be compulsory. It should be optional. Okay? What might they say? Now, do you think they will say something like this? Community service is a waste of time that takes students away from their studies. A waste of time. Do you think anybody is going to say this? Very unlikely, right? No reasonable person is going to say that community service is a waste of time. Everybody knows that you learn rather valuable lessons from community service, right? So this is a straw man. This is a straw man. Now, what would be something that is too strong? Something like this, perhaps. Making community service compulsory may breed resentment rather than a genuine willingness to serve others and to serve the community, which then defeats the very purpose of community service. right? If students are doing it grudgingly, you don't want that. Now, this, I would say, is actually too strong, too hard to argue against. I would struggle to rebut this convincingly. What is something that would be suitable in this case? Consider this. With their packed schedules, academic pressures, and CCA commitments, students nowadays simply don't have the time to take on compulsory community service. How does this sound? It sounds valid, doesn't it? Yeah, but still, it is something that I can respond to with a strong rebuttal. Okay, this objection about not having enough time, I can respond to that. I can rebut that. So, in a nutshell, when it comes to choosing the right counter argument, think of it as a gradient, a sliding scale. You don't want something that is too weak. You don't want something that is too strong. You want to choose something that hits the sweet spot. All right? Now that you know how to pick your counter argument, it is time to put pen to paper and write. And how you execute this really, really matters. If you write this carelessly, if you present your counter argument carelessly, your reader may think that you're schizophrenic or that you've suddenly switched sides. Okay? So, to avoid that, 3 rules. Number 1, you want to use distancing language. Number 2, you want to use hedging phrases. And last but not least, you want to keep it short and sweet. So let's explore each of these rules in turn, shall we? And look at examples so you know exactly what to do and what to avoid. First rule, distancing language. Here, when writing, you must make clear that the counter-argument is somebody else's view and not yours. So, distancing language will help you achieve this because it attributes the point to other people. Yeah? So, if you don't use distancing language, it may sound like this. Students nowadays simply do not have the time for compulsory community service because their schedules are already packed with academic work and CCAs. Now, I want you to imagine, as a marker, I have just read 2 paragraphs of you convincing me that community service should be compulsory. And then suddenly, now you say that students nowadays simply don't have the time? You see how it sounds a bit schizophrenic? Right? So you want to avoid this. This sounds like your opinion. That's why it's a problem. Now, we correct this by using distancing language. As such, opponents of compulsory community service claim that students do not have the time as their schedules are already packed with academics and CCAs. See? You see this highlighted bit over here, this bit in green? Now, this makes it clear that you're presenting somebody else's position, that you don't endorse this position, that you don't necessarily endorse this position, okay? All right? So here are some phrases that you can borrow to distance yourself from the counter-argument. When introducing it, you can say things like, detractors would say. Critics of this approach believe that. Opponents of this view claim that, or proponents of X may claim that. Now, proponents simply means supporters. It's just a fancy word for supporters, yeah? Or you can say, my opponent would argue that. Or simply, some argue that also works. Or those who disagree that may argue, yeah? So there are many ways to distance yourself, yeah, from the counter-argument. Now, to elaborate on the counter-argument, you can borrow some of these phrases. From their perspective, their concern is that, according to their line of thinking, or supporters of this view may add that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So by prefacing the counter-argument with such phrases, you essentially distance yourself from it. Okay? And you kind of weaken it in the process. Now, distancing itself is not enough. You also need to watch your tone. And that's where hedging comes in. Now, before I move on, you might want to take a screenshot or write down some of these phrases because these are really useful. These are really useful phrases that you can reach for, yeah, when writing your counter-argument. Okay, next, hedging. What is hedging? Hedging language is what helps you present the opposing view fairly without making it sound too convincing. Yeah, because many students, they have written 2 few paragraphs trying to convince the reader. And so when they get to the counter-argument, they are unable to adjust their language to serve this purpose. Yeah. So when you make the error of presenting the counter argument so favorably, right, it may end up sounding just as persuasive as your earlier supporting point. Now, this signals to examiners that you don't know how to use language for different purposes. And that's a problem. Yeah, you need to show that you're able to adjust your language to suit different purposes. In this case, when I'm writing the counter argument, what is my goal? My goal is simply to acknowledge the opposing view and then later tear it down. So I don't want to hype it up, I don't want to glaze the counter argument too much. Yeah. So to avoid this trap, right, you want to watch out for words that will make the counter argument seem too strong and then replace them with softer alternatives. Let's take a look at an example. So, same topic earlier about community service. If you don't hedge, this is what you end up with. Those who oppose compulsory community service rightly argue that students are already overwhelmed by the academic workload. It is therefore perfectly understandable that adding yet another obligation will be too much for any student to handle. Now, it sounds to me like you've switched sides already. You see that? Okay? Because phrases like rightly argue, perfectly understandable, these phrases actually reinforce the counter argument, and you don't want that. Yeah? So here's what we can do with hedging phrases. Those who oppose compulsory community service claim, not rightly argue, claim that students may already feel stretched by the academic workload. From this perspective, the addition of another commitment might seem difficult to manage. Okay, you see a difference? Yeah, I use words like claim, may feel, might seem. These phrases signal that I'm aware that this argument exists, but I'm not endorsing it, right? I'm not agreeing with it. Okay? Now, third rule is simple. Simply keep it short. Your counter argument should take up about 3 to 4 sentences and no more. If you make the mistake of over-explaining the counter-argument, right, you may end up with an unbalanced paragraph with the counter-argument taking up too much space. Okay, so what happens is many students, they get carried away. They get carried away when writing the counter-argument. They add more reasoning. They bring in more examples. And then before they know it, right, the counter-argument is already spanning 6 to 8 sentences. That's too much, huh? All right? So why is this a problem? Because you don't want the counter-argument to sound more convincing than your own points. And if you commit too much, if you allocate too much time to the counter argument, you may not have enough time for your rebuttal, which will then sound weak by comparison. So what you do is state the counter argument, elaborate briefly, move on swiftly to the rebuttal. Now let's put all 3 rules together, right? So here's a sample of a counter argument that uses distancing language, hedging phrases, and keeps it short. Check this out. Those who oppose compulsory community service claim that students may already feel stretched by their academic workload and CCA commitments. Many students spend their time after school on tuition lessons, enrichment classes, CCA sessions, and homework, leaving little room in their schedules. Adding compulsory community service on top of this could leave them with no time to rest. See the distancing language? See the hedging phrases, and see how short it is, right? Now, this alone is enough for a counter argument, and we are ready to move on to the rebuttal. Okay? So what's next? Clearly, what's next is the rebuttal. A counter argument without a rebuttal is only half the job done. So please stay tuned for the next lesson where I'll be talking about the rebuttal. So here at Great Solution, we teach these skills and more to make sure that all our students are fully prepared to write an expository essay, meaning both discursive as well as argumentative. Yeah. So we'll teach you how to write a cohesive thesis statement. We'll teach you how to elaborate well in a appeal paragraph. We'll teach you how to write persuasively. What is persuasive language? Okay. And what does it look like for argumentative essays? So if you're interested in joining our secondary English classes, and I hope you are, please feel free to contact our admin via WhatsApp at this number for more details. All right, that's it from me for now. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you in the next video where I'll talk about the rebuttal. Thank you so much.